The year is 48 CE. A 15-year-old girl crosses the threshold of the Palatine Palace. White silk clings to her frame. Myrtle leaves crown her golden hair. The Senate rises. The people roar approval. Emperor Claudius, 50 years old, his left leg dragging slightly, speech caught in his throat, takes her small hand in his. His name is legend. Hers will become something else entirely. Valeria Messalina, remember it. Rome tried to forget. They expect her to save them. The bloodstains from Caligula's assassination are barely scrubbed from the corridors. 4 years of madness, executions for entertainment, incest paraded as policy, a reign so unhinged that his own guards cut him down in a tunnel beneath this very palace. Rome needs stability, virtue, heirs. They dress her as salvation. Within 10 years, she will transform this palace into something the ancient sources can barely describe without trembling. Senators will become her prisoners. Aristocratic daughters will disappear into her chambers and return changed. Silent, broken, bound by secrets they'll carry to their graves. She will stage contests that would shock professional prostitutes. She will orchestrate blackmail on a scale that would make modern intelligence agencies pause. She will marry another man while still empress, in daylight, with witnesses, as if daring Rome itself to stop her. And when they finally do, her statues will be dragged through the streets and shattered. Her name will be chiseled from every inscription. Official records will be rewritten as if she never existed. Damnatio memoriae, damnation of memory. 2,000 years later, you're still here, still listening, because the things Rome tried hardest to erase are the things we can't stop digging up. So what happens when corruption isn't a symptom of power, but the power itself? Rewind to 38 CE. The forum is alive with voices. Merchants hawking silk, senators arguing over grain, children running between columns. Rome looks invincible, but the rot is already there. Tiberius died 2 years ago. Paranoid, hated, alone on Capri. Then came Caligula. 4 years of madness. Executions as entertainment. A horse appointed to the Senate. Senators forced to watch as he violated their wives at dinner. When the Praetorian Guard finally moved, January 24th, 41 CE, 29 stab wounds ended it. His wife dead beside him. Their infant daughter's skull smashed against a wall. Rome exhaled, then panicked. Who comes next? They find him hiding behind a curtain. Claudius, the stammering uncle, the family embarrassment with the limp and the drool, 50 years old, never wanted power, never expected it. The guard proclaims him emperor anyway, not because he's qualified, because he's alive and Rome needs someone wearing the purple before the city tears itself apart. Claudius knows he's a placeholder. He needs legitimacy, fast, an heir, a dynasty. Proof the gods haven't abandoned Rome. So he marries Valeria Messalina, third cousin, 15 years old. Bloodline that traces back to Aeneas himself. Beauty that poets build careers describing. Pale skin, golden hair, features so perfect they look carved. She's been groomed for this. Educated in virtue, taught to lower her eyes, speak softly, embody the chastity that holds civilization together. On paper, she's perfect. The Senate approves, the people cheer, the empire has a future again. But here's the question nobody asked. What happens when you take a child and dress her as a goddess? When you place her in a palace where every door opens at her command, where senators bow, where her husband is twice her age and terrified of losing power? When you tell her that her entire value exists in her womb and her purity, that she must be modest, obedient, chaste, a living symbol of virtue? When you hand unlimited power to someone whose only instruction is don't use it, what happens when the gap between what she's forced to be in public and what she desires in private becomes a chasm? Rome is about to find out. If this moment doesn't move you to stay and learn what happens when power meets forbidden desire, you're missing the lesson our ancestors died to teach. Because what comes next isn't just scandal, It's how empires crumble from the bedroom, not the battlefield. Before we go further, if you're drawn to documented records that history classes won't touch, hitting that like and subscribe button helps us uncover more accounts like this. Now, back to the story. The first 2 years are textbook perfect. Messalina gives Claudius a daughter, Claudia Octavia, then a son, Britannicus, named after his father's conquest of Britain. The Senate breathes easier. The empire has heirs. She appears at state functions, draped in modest stola, head covered, eyes downcast. Every gesture choreographed for virtue. The perfect Roman matron. In public, she is everything Rome demands. In private, Rome has always divided its women into 2 categories: the matrona and the meretrix, the wife and the courtesan, the sacred and the profane. One lives in the atrium, raises children, guards family honor. The other lives in the lupanar, the brothel, where men shed civilization like a cloak. The system works because these categories never touch. Messalina decides to be both. The first whisper comes around 42 CE. A senator returns late from Ostia. Business ran long. He's in Rome for the night. On impulse, he visits the Subura, Rome's red light district. Narrow streets that smell like piss and cheap wine. Cramped insulae where oil lamps burn low and you can disappear into the dark. He chooses a room, pays his coin. The woman enters. Dark wig, heavy coals smudged around her eyes. Perfume trying too hard. Myrrh and roses covering something that smells expensive. She turns toward him. Their eyes meet. He recognizes the Empress of Rome. Not a look-alike, not a rumor. Her. According to Tacitus, yes, writing decades later, yes, with his own agenda, but with access to palace insiders. This wasn't once. Messalina allegedly adopted the working name Lycisca and became a regular at a brothel run by a woman named Scylla. Not for money, not from desperation, for the thrill of it. Think about the psychology. Every client who didn't recognize her became an unwitting accomplice. Every man who did became someone she owned. Because what's he going to do? Report the Empress to whom? She's not just breaking rules. She's weaponizing the hypocrisy that built them. Because Roman morality was always performance. Senators kept mistresses. Generals visited brothels. Married men slept with slaves and nobody blinked. But women, especially aristocratic women, especially the Empress, were supposed to be above desire. Marble statues, breeding vessels, symbols. Messalina looked at that cage and walked out the door. She would return before dawn, remove the wig, wash away the cheap perfume, dress in imperial silk, attend the morning sacrifice to Vesta, goddess of chastity, with the same serene expression she wore the night before, as if nothing happened. But the brothel was just the laboratory. The real operation happened inside the palace. Picture the banquets. Rome's elite sprawled on silk couches around low tables. Golden platters heaped with roasted dormice brushed in honey. Wine flowing from jeweled cups. Senators making small talk. Generals discussing Britain. Very Roman, very civilized. Until Messalina gives a signal. The servants leave. The doors close. New guests arrive. Gladiators still smelling of the arena. Sand, blood, sweat. Actors from the theatre, foreign captives, sometimes the teenage sons of patrician families, summoned under the pretense of discussing their father's careers. What happens next, the sources describe with horror and fascination. Forced performances, humiliating contests, senators paired with their political enemies and told to entertain the Empress. Aristocratic women, married, respectable, terrified, coerced into playing the prostitute while their husbands watch from across the room, frozen. Refusal isn't an option. A tribune declines her invitation. 3 days later, he's floating in the Tiber. A nobleman tries to leave early. His family loses their estate by week's end. The message spreads. The Empress does not accept no. Then comes the contest. The story appears in Pliny the Elder. Yes, he's writing about natural history, but this detail stuck. A competition between the Empress and a famous prostitute named Scylla, not for money, for pride. Who could outlast more partners in a single night? 25. Messalina 1. Pliny writes it down like he's documenting a solar eclipse, with clinical horror and fascinated precision. True? Exaggerated? Propaganda? We'll never know for certain. But the story survived because it captured something Romans couldn't articulate. A woman wielding sexual power, not as submission, but as dominance. Rome didn't have language for that, so they turned it into myth. But myths don't come from nowhere. They reflect something that happened, something people witnessed and couldn't forget, even when they tried. The palace becomes a theatre of power, where humiliation is currency, where senators arrive at dawn to beg favours and leave at midnight, having performed acts they'll never speak of again, where aristocratic families send their daughters into the empress's chambers and pray they return unmarried. Most do, some don't. Nobody asks questions, because by now, everyone understands the system. Messalina doesn't just wield power, she collects it, piece by piece, person by person, building a network of complicity so vast that nobody can move against her without destroying themselves. Every participant becomes a prisoner. Every witness becomes an accomplice. She doesn't need the Senate's approval, she has their shame. That's better than loyalty. Loyalty can shift. Shame lasts forever. And through it all, Claudius works, building aqueducts, reforming courts, expanding the empire into Britain. The competent emperor everyone underestimated. Does he know? Of course he knows. Rome is gossiping. Senators are whispering. His own freedmen are begging him to act. But what can he do? She's the mother of his heirs. Moving against her means admitting he's been cuckolded before the entire empire. It means civil war. It means proving every critic right, that he was always too weak to control his own house. So he does what powerful men have done throughout history when faced with unbearable truth. He looks away, works harder, pretends the rot isn't spreading, until 48 CE, 10 years after their marriage. The year everything ends. It's autumn. Claudius is in Ostia overseeing Rome's grain supply. Critical work. The city survives on Egyptian wheat, and any disruption means riots. He's doing his job, being the competent administrator Rome needs. Meanwhile, in Rome, Messalina is getting married. Again, to Gaius Silius, consul designate, one of the most powerful senators in Rome, young, handsome, ambitious, everything Claudius isn't. But here's the detail that breaks your brain. She doesn't hide it. This isn't an affair in the shadows. This is a public wedding ceremony, with witnesses, with contracts, with formal vows, while still married to the emperor. The ancient sources describe it with stunned precision. Tacitus writes about the disbelief, the frozen moment when Rome's elite watched the empress take another husband in broad daylight, as if the rules simply didn't apply to her anymore. Was it a power play? A coup attempt? Did she think Claudius was too weak to respond? Did Silius believe he could replace the emperor through marriage? Or had Messalina reached the point where transgression itself was the goal, where the thrill came not from secrecy, but from daring Rome to stop her? We don't know her thoughts, we only know her actions. And Rome, corrupt, compromised, exhausted Rome, finally found its limit. Narcissus, Claudius's most trusted freedman, hears the news first. He rushes to Ostia, finds the emperor reviewing grain ledgers. Picture that conversation. How do you tell an emperor his wife just married someone else?